Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the White House leaks a plan for immigration reform, and a new San Diego congressman pushes to beat harsh federal spending cuts. San Diego's new SEAL cam catches some trouble at La Jolla Cove, two women harassing the animals in the middle of the night. Also tonight, we'll talk with some young people who've grown up in San Diego but are getting ready to return to Somalia, their homeland, to help with rebuilding. And we'll show you this amazing sight off the San Diego coast. Thousands of dolphins in a pod stretching for miles. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The White House calls it a backup plan. Some Republicans say it's dead on arrival. We're talking about a White House proposal for immigration reform leaked over the weekend. The plan includes an 8-year path to legal residency for illegal immigrants. They'd have to learn English and the history and government of the U.S. They'd also have to pay back taxes and pass a criminal background check. The White House says it's planning ahead in case Congress can't agree on comprehensive immigration reform. Florida Senator Marco Rubio says Republicans should have been consulted. Other lawmakers say they're optimistic they'll have a bipartisan bill ready by next month. Congress is less than 2 weeks away from the deadline to stop sequestration, that is automatic across-the-board federal spending cuts, scheduled to take effect on March 1st. Now, if Congress doesn't agree on reducing the deficit. Today, freshman Congressman from San Diego, Scott Peters, joined local leaders urging his peers to work together and come to an agreement. He says sequestration threatens the San Diego economy.
The sequester is one of the things I talked about when I ran for Congress, and one of the reasons I believe I was elected, because San Diegans were tired of government making self-inflicted wounds that threaten our jobs and our economy and prosperity.
In just a few minutes on Evening Edition, we will talk with Congressman Peters in our studio about sequestration and its impact on military spending. A webcam intended to capture seal births at La Jolla Cove recorded something very different. Two people harassing the seals at night. The Western Alliance for Nature provides the webcam and says the seals were driven off the beach. If you recall, for years, the children's pool has been a battleground between animal rights activists and advocates for beach access. A rope is set up to keep people away from the seals. It's not illegal to cross the rope, but it is against the law to harass the animals. The man who turned the Los Angeles Lakers into one of the most successful teams in the country has died. Jerry Buss died of cancer early this morning. He bought the Lakers in 1979 and made big moves with the team, bringing in players like Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe Bryant. He created the Laker Girls, too. The team won 10 NBA titles under his ownership. His family is expected to retain control of the team. Jerry Buss was 80 years old. Former San Diego Mayor Maureen O'Connor's billion-dollar gambling addiction shocked many of the people who thought they knew her. As part of a settlement agreement last week, she'll have to repay about $2 million and seek treatment. Gambling addiction has affected many San Diego families over the years. We're joined by David Peters, a family therapist from Mission Valley, to talk about some of the signs of problem gambling. So nice to meet you. Give us a sense, you're a family therapist,
Yes.
And gambling is just one of the many addictions.
One of the many addictions or compulsive behaviors that can tear a family apart. People can come into my office for marriage counseling or for depression or anxiety, and I'll find out that the spouse has a gambling addiction, or when the teenage son has a gambling addiction. So you think they're coming in for one thing, and after you really diagnose the situation, here's another core element that has to be treated.
How widespread would you say the problem is compared to, say, other big cities?
Well, it's hard to say in San Diego. With the number of gambling casinos around, certainly people in this population are more vulnerable. But now with the internet, anybody who's got a computer has access to gambling, and I treat more people who gamble on the internet than people who actually go to the casinos.
Similar to O'Connor. Now, her attorney said that she had a brain tumor that led to the addiction. What are some of the root causes of gambling addictions?
Well, addictions and compulsive behaviors can be caused by a number of factors. There are certain personality characteristics that are common to addicts and people with compulsive behaviors. Some of those are rooted in genetics. Some are rooted in early childhood development. Early childhood traumas, abuse and neglect situations, unresolved grief situations can lead to addictive or compulsive behaviors because the person inadvertently learns that if I take this drug or if I act this way, I can cause an emotion that counteracts the depression or the anxiety or the pain that I'm hiding underneath. Now, in terms of a brain tumor, very, very difficult to state if it's factually true or not. Of course, I don't know Ms. O'Connor's case at all. But a brain tumor can cause numerous changes in brain functioning and changes in personality. But it's very, very unpredictable because the brain is a complex unit. Our behavior is governed by many different parts of the brain. And so, while it's possible, I think it would be very difficult to prove.
Outside of a brain tumor, what are some of the warning signs that a person might exhibit with a problem?
Well, most people with gambling addictions or compulsions also have alcoholism, nicotine addiction, drug addiction, maybe an eating disorder. In other words, these come in clusters. There are people with what we call addictive personalities, but not all the time. Sometimes it's someone who's just realized that there's a good thrill to the gambling, and what happens in gambling is that you get a hit of dopamine in the brain, and dopamine's that neurotransmitter that makes us feel so good, say when the Chargers win a game, or on the rare chance that they win a playoff. That dopamine makes us feel great, and in gambling you can feel that dopamine hit when you win, and that element itself can be addictive.
Yeah, is this considered a medical problem? Is addiction a medical problem, or is it something else?
Well, medical problems, psychological problems are very overlapped, and it's almost impossible to really pull them apart because what happens in my mind happens in my brain. I teach my clients about brain neurology. I say, with your compulsion or your addiction, you're going to have times where you get really aroused and you can't stop. And the reason is because certain neurons in the brain fire together in a network, and neurons that fire together wire together. And what happens is that once you've thought about it, once you've felt the temptation, it's hard to shift left or right or to get out of that behavior. And what I train my clients to do is to be better observers of their emotional state, better observer of their thoughts, so that they can then shift left or right and note, oh, I'm almost going to do this, and then they know, okay, call someone, write in my journal, let me get out and get some exercise. I want them to note it and make a shift before they get into the addictive behavior itself.
We've got about 30 seconds. San Diego County has more casinos than any other place in the state. Do you think casinos should be more responsible for gambling addictions?
Well, certainly casinos do contribute money to the centers that help gambling addicts. But this becomes a philosophical challenge for the society, really. I think whenever you have casinos easily available, people who are vulnerable to addictive behavior are going to go there. They're going to lose tons of money. They're going to wipe out their family income. They could wipe out their families themselves. So it's a debate that we should all have.
David Peters is a family therapist in Mission Valley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Should Cardinal Roger Mahony be allowed to vote for the next pope? An influential Italian Catholic magazine is asking its readers for their opinion. You may recall Mahony was stripped of his duties last month by the man who replaced him as Archbishop of the Los Angeles Diocese. Recently released documents show Mahony and other officials in the diocese worked to protect child molesting priests and to silence reports of sexual abuse. Los Angeles Police Department says it's still trying to figure out what to do with the huge reward offered in the Christopher Dorner case. It's more than $1 million. LAPD says it can't be distributed until the investigation is complete. Coast Guard says a leaking fuel oil line is to blame for a crippling fire on a Carnival cruise ship last week. Passengers were stranded on board for days with overflowing toilets, long lines for food, and tent cities for sleeping on the deck. While officials say they have a cause, the investigation continues, looking into the crew's response and why the ship was disabled for so long. A lot of cheers, hugs, and tears of joy today at the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. More than 220 troops from the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing are home after a year-long deployment in Afghanistan, where they provided support for NATO forces. The U.S. officially recognized Somalia's government last week for the first time since 1991. Somalia has been called the world's most failed state, enduring deadly famines and more than 2 decades of civil war. Now the nation is rebuilding under a newly elected president, and Somalis in San Diego are eager to help. KPBS reporter Megan Burke spoke to one young man who says he can't wait to go back permanently.
Somali refugees greeted new Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud with cheers and dance in Minnesota last month. Mohamud urged members of the audience there to return to their homeland and help rebuild the nation. Minneapolis has the United States' largest Somali population. San Diego comes in second with more than 10,000 Somali refugees. 23-year-old Mohammed Ahmed is one of them. He says his president's message has sparked conversation here in San Diego, too.
Definitely. The conversation, it's already among the community. People have already been back. People are planning to go back.
Ahmed left Somalia with his family when he was 2 months old and came to the U.S. at the age of 4. He's now about to graduate from San Diego State University alongside other East Africans who arrived in America in the 90s. He says the timing for a revived Somali state couldn't be better.
There's a need for Somali doctors. There's a need for Somali nurses, engineers, entrepreneurs, even future young Somali politicians are needed.
And Somalia has them. If you look to its diaspora, Ahmed will graduate with a degree in international security and conflict resolution. If his major and the perfectly pressed suit he wears aren't enough to hint at a future political career in Somalia, his vacation photos might be.
What we were doing as an organization in Somalia was exploring the educational facilities in Somalia.
Photos from his trip to Somalia over winter break show Ahmed and other members of the SDSU-based group Cure Africa talking with dignitaries and posing with bright-eyed school children. Ahmed and his classmates are building a school there. They plan to return after graduation to cut the ribbon at the opening. But Ahmed says that's not the last he'll see of his country.
As of right now, I want to continue my education, further my education, but will there be a time I will live in Somalia permanently? Yes, and in fact, I can't wait for that day.
It's still a country that's one of the least developed countries in the world, and you know, that is certainly the life they're going to have in Somalia is not going to be comparable to the life they're going to have in the United States.
That's Abdi Mohamud. He's the executive director of the City Heights-based nonprofit Horn of Africa. He said he's not convinced many young Somalis will make the move to Africa.
You'll see about 95% of those youth, they're going to make the United States their home. This is the only home they know.
Ahmed admitted he'd miss watching the Chargers play, but he insists he's Somali through and through. Each week, Ahmed hurries from the San Diego State campus to a mosque on a busy street corner in City Heights. It's in an area locals call Little Mogadishu because of the cluster of Somali shops and restaurants located there. Ahmed joins fellow East Africans for Friday prayers. The imam, the Somali cab drivers, the shop owners, they all seem to know him.
To me, I feel like I have the best of two worlds. I have the American culture and I have the Somali culture. My parents worked hard to keep my Somali heritage in place with me.
And Ahmed says it's that blended upbringing that has prepared him for a future in a changing Somalia.
This American culture gave me the ability to network and to work with people and to live alongside with other people from different walks of life.
So will more young refugees heed President Mohamud's call for help? I asked Ahmed's classmate Yosef Abraham if he has plans to one day work in his family's homeland.
My major is actually in criminal justice, and originally when I went into that field, I wanted to do something with law enforcement or federal law enforcement. But since I started Cure Africa, my focus has kind of shifted a little bit, and I think I found what I really want to do in my heart, and it's doing humanitarian work.
Sounds like it might not be the Somali president's call to action so much as that strong desire to change the world so many leave college with. And lucky for these soon-to-be graduates, they have a world ripe for quick and visible change in their homeland. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
No, you sure Vina's gonna let you?
As Congress begins their 10-day recess, automatic spending cuts known as sequestration are hovering like a dark cloud. Newly elected San Diego Congressman Scott Peters held a news conference this morning to talk about the possible effect spending cuts would have on our port. Congressman Peters represents San Diego's 52nd District, and he joins us. Nice to see you, sir. Welcome back home.
Thanks for having me, Dwayne.
So you served on San Diego City Council, you were a port commissioner. Now you've spent 6 weeks in Washington.
Right.
Is it what you expected?
Well, it's hard to know quite what to expect. I'll give you a couple impressions. One is it's much more political than San Diego was. And I think in San Diego we pride ourselves on being nonpartisan and collaborating. And even President Clinton has recognized that San Diego is a center of collaborative cooperation. We don't see that in Congress just yet. But I'll say the other ray of hope that I've found is that a lot of the freshmen, and there's a lot of us, 85 of us, a quarter of all the Democrats, 49 Democrats, are new, got the same message in November, which was people wanted us to stop fighting for the sake of fighting and start fixing. So I hope that we can hold on to that and push that whole attitude through Congress.
Now, speaking of bipartisanship and trying to come together, sequestration is a big issue. We're talking deadline March 1st.
Right.
Do you support the plan to avoid spending cuts?
I think that this is the wrong way to go about spending cuts. If you look at any of the bipartisan kind of approaches that, whether it's Simpson-Bowles or the Domenici-Rivlin kind of approach, people have looked at the budget and figured out how to get a hold of it. They like us to do this over time and take painful measures, no doubt about it. But the idea of this sequestration, I think we're saying it's more like an amputation. And here we are climbing out of this recovery. We would make these incredibly broad cuts right now to a great extent that could really throw us back into a recession. That's not good for San Diego. It's certainly not good for the country.
Yeah, when I think of the word sequestration, it seems to kind of mask what we're really talking about, right?
Right.
The Senate plan, what don't you like? What do you like?
Well, we have the Mr. Ryan's budget from the last couple of years in the House, and now we have the Senate plan, which is more of a Democratic version. I think it's a productive part of the conversation. I don't think the Republicans are going to agree to that, but let's talk about where we can marry the two and bring a deal. I think that there's so many reasons to want to get this behind us, even if the deal isn't perfect from anyone's perspective. No one's going to get everything they want. It would create a lot of certainty and enable us to really plan for the investments we need to make this country competitive in the next century.
Let's go beyond the debate at this point. What would the sequester mean for San Diego's infrastructure projects and the port, for that matter?
Well, remember, San Diego's economy depends on three main sectors to bring money in. One is tourism, one is the military, one is scientific research and innovation. But also trade is really important to us. And so what I was talking about today was we want to connect our port to the national system of highway and rail as a way to create more jobs and have San Diego play a part in the movement of goods throughout the country. We're not in a position to do that without federal investment. There's other infrastructure investments like keeping the bridges from falling down and keeping our roads in repair. Those things we need to do to keep ourselves competitive, to be able to be competitive in the next century and create jobs and move the country ahead. The other San Diego effects we'll be talking about this week are in scientific research, where we face a loss of funding for the National Institutes of Health. Those discoveries at the Salk Institute, Sanford Burnham, Scripps Research Institute, UCSD, those institutes up on the Mesa have not just changed the world and created better health care, but they've created a lot of jobs here. And then finally, the military is responsible for 25% of all the jobs in the county. At the end of last year, we thought sequestration threatened about 30,000 jobs just in that sector alone, in addition to threatening the national security. So all in all, this is not a way to go about making policy. Let's sit down and have a more thoughtful approach.
You know, there hasn't been a lot of detail on what the $27 billion as it relates to defense cuts will include, right? And of course, San Diego being the military town it is. What do you think the Senate's plan would mean for San Diego's defense industry?
The sequestration. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and I know that there's a lot of alarm among Republicans and Democrats, not just about what we would do to the spending and the contracting, but really what the effect is on our national security. And Secretary Panetta has made a big point of this, is that at some point you're really affecting our ability to defend ourselves and to deploy our troops where they're needed to protect our interests. So I'm concerned about that. But we know locally that already we're talking about whether we have to cancel construction contracts, lay off civilians, and a lot of folks whose jobs depend on those things, that they would like to have more certainty. And the idea that we would do this in this process that just sort of slashes at some level without thinking about what the priorities are, what the strategic effect is, it's just not good enough. We deserve better, and I think we ought to be home working this week, not on recess.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. So you guys are on a 10-day recess. Some would wonder, why aren't you back at work?
I would wonder that.
Yeah, trying to get the deal done, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. We've got 2 weeks till the sequester, and we have this scheduled district work week. I'll work all week. I'm going to take some tours of some Navy facilities that I haven't seen yet. That's going to be useful for me in my job. And we'll be talking to constituents, but we're talking about the sequester all week. We're going to be highlighting the effect of that so that we can create some urgency. Because really this week, as nice as it is to be in San Diego getting my vitamin D, we ought to be in D.C. Working on this problem. This is really something that the country needs to move away from.
Okay, final question, last response quickly, please. So next week, Congress heads back to Washington.
Yep.
You have another less than a week, actually.
Yep.
Because if something isn't done by March 1st, the cuts happen.
Right.
What's your prediction?
Well, you're as good at predicting anything as I am. I will tell you that there are a lot of people who would like to see a resolution. I'd like to see the president be more active, because I think now that there's a Democratic version or Republican version, he can really have an effect in bringing us together, and I hope he'll do that.
Thanks, Congressman Scott Peters.
Thank you, Dwayne.
We have an update tonight about a story we told you about a couple of weeks ago. The KPBS and iNewsSource Investigations Desk has been working on a series about hospice care. We introduce you to 89-year-old Elsie Salas. Elsie had stage 4 heart failure and had been receiving hospice care for the past 13 months.
Complaining about nothing. Really, if I did, I'd be a fool.
Elsie died Sunday night at home with his wife Betty by his side. Elsie was one of a growing number of people in San Diego County choosing hospice care and outliving their 6-month prognosis. Last week, San Diego Hospice announced it was closing its doors following a 2-year Medicare investigation into patient eligibility. You can see more of our reporting on this issue at kpbs.org/endoflife.
I'm Jeffrey Brown. On the next NewsHour, the start of a week-long series on gun violence, part of a national conversation on PBS called After Newtown. It's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
San Diego gas prices continue their upward climb. They've gone up about 53 cents in the past 3 weeks. The average for a gallon of unleaded in the county is now $4.26. AAA says refinery maintenance has cut gas supplies, driving prices at the pump higher. First, the governor of Texas tried to lure California businesses to his state. Now, the governor of Iowa, Terry Branstad, is doing the same. He's coming to the Golden State tomorrow to try to convince companies to relocate. Rick Perry of Texas just made a similar trip. California's Governor Jerry Brown calls it a political stunt. More financial troubles for the parent company of Reader's Digest. It's filed bankruptcy protection for the second time in less than 4 years. RDA Holdings says it will keep publishing the magazine while it reorganizes and says it plans to be out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 6 months. Reader's Digest's version of the forecast now. Rain. A storm is on the way. We'll see snow up in our local mountains. The desert could see some clearing by Thursday. Look at this, an amazing sight in the waters off San Diego. A huge pod of dolphins, thousands of them, in a megapod about 7 miles long. Marine mammal experts say there's plenty of food in the area, which might have drawn many pods together to form this enormous group. The all-natural organic food movement is spreading from people food to pet food. Think raw chicken, beef, even duck or venison. But as the AP's Lee Powell reports, there's little consensus raw pet food is best.
Come on. It is what all the hip pets are eating these days.
It's freeze-dried raw, crumbled in with raw goat's milk.
Sure, humans have gone organic, but now so have their pets. Chicken, beef, turkey. A raw food revolution. Hip, but is it healthy?
Premium pet foods don't necessarily contain better or more complete nutrition for your pet. So how's he doing?
Dr. Douglas Asprose is president of the American Veterinary Medical Association and a vet outside New York City.
The problem is there is no evidence to suggest that raw or natural diets will prolong pets' lives.
Raw food believers like those at the Big Bad Wolf in Hyattsville, Maryland, say the diet is clean, natural.
Animals have lived among us and with us and shared our diets for hundreds of years, and they've done well.
Pet food is a business in the billions of dollars. Raw food's a small percentage of that, but growing.
In the years that we've been in this business, we're seeing that the national brands are getting much stronger. They're getting a lot more market depth.
The flavor's exotic, and at least you don't have to make your own anymore.
2 KitchenAid mixers completely fried, and which made it very expensive in the end.
Going raw can be pricey. The payoff?
How much do you want to pay in vet bills later on in life? Because you will have them.
Their teeth don't get a lot of tartar, and their ears don't get ear infections, and they don't get skin issues.
But the real test is taste. And it looks like Atticus, the young Siberian husky, approves. Lee Powell, The Associated Press.
Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.